Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the strange quiet of another world, one that may seem impossibly distant from your warm bed. The air smells faintly of coal smoke and boiled cabbage. You open your eyes, and instead of the glow of your phone screen or the hum of central heating, you see a small dim room with frost forming on the inside of the window glass. The year is 1953. And you are waking inside a Soviet communal apartment in Leningrad. Your breath clouds the air. The thin blanket pulled to your chin does little against the chill, and every sound carries: pots clattering in the shared kitchen, footsteps creaking in the corridor, a baby wailing somewhere down the hall. You probably wouldn't survive this place for long, not without learning how to share everything. Bathrooms, kitchens, even secrets, with 7 other families. Privacy is rare, luxury nearly non-existent. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it there? It always amazes me how people fall asleep to these stories all over the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stir in your narrow bed, which doubles as a sofa during the day. The mattress is thin, sagging where countless nights have pressed it down. Across the room, your parents sleep on a fold-out couch, the only other bed in this small living space. Coats hang along the walls because there is no closet, no dresser, no room to waste on unnecessary furniture. A small table stands ready to transform later into the family's dining space. Every object serves more than one function, because every inch of this 150 square foot room is claimed. The cold bites your ears as you push the blanket aside. You shiver, listening for the bathroom door down the hallway. If it's already shut, you know you'll have to wait. Maybe 10, maybe 20 minutes, maybe longer. 8 families share one tub, one sink, one toilet. The morning is a negotiation, an unspoken schedule everyone tries to follow. The wallpaper above your bed is peeling, revealing older patterns underneath. A palimpsest of decades, pre-revolutionary florals, then the bold stripes of the 1930s, now faded and stained. It smells faintly of damp plaster. You rub the sleep from your eyes and pull on a heavy wool coat, still rough from yesterday's drizzle. The corridor beyond your door stretches long and dim, lit by a single bare bulb that sways when someone slams a door. The parquet floor beneath your feet is scuffed to dullness, worn down by generations of tenants. A door creaks open. Dmitry Petrovich, the factory foreman from the first room near the entrance, steps out with a nod, stubble grey in the weak yellow light. He glances toward the bathroom door and sighs. It's occupied. "Nikolai's in there," he mutters. 10 minutes already." You lean against the wall, clutching your towel and soap dish. This is life here. Waiting, adjusting, sharing space in silence, or with half-whispered complaints. Your ears catch the sound of water running through pipes that groan like tortured metal. The smell of boiled kasha drifts from the kitchen where someone has already claimed a burner. A woman's sharp voice rises. Someone used more than their share of sugar. A kettle whistles shrilly. In this building, everyone's business is everyone's business, whether you want it or not. At last, the bathroom door opens. An elderly widow shuffles out with her hair wrapped in a towel. Steam curls into the hallway, briefly warming the chill air. She nods curtly, not unkindly, as she passes. Dmitri waves you forward, a small kindness. You take his place in the queue. Inside the bathroom, the sink is cracked, the tub stained from years of hard use. A chain hangs from the toilet, clinking when pulled. You splash water on your face, the shock of cold clearing the fog from your thoughts. Hot water is rare, and today you're lucky. The pipe gurgles, then coughs up warmth for a few minutes. You scrub quickly, aware of the line waiting outside. 7 minutes, maybe 8, before another knock will come. Back in your room, your mother has lit a small burner that is technically forbidden, but universally tolerated. She pours hot water into a battered samovar, a family heirloom that somehow survived war and revolution. The hiss of steam and scent of strong black tea fill the air. She hands you a chipped porcelain cup and a bowl of buckwheat porridge, sweetened with a precious spoonful of sugar. You eat standing up, spoon scraping the enamel surface of the bowl. "Your father is at the bakery," she says quietly. He's been in line since before dawn. Fresh bread is one of the few guarantees of Soviet life. It is cheap, filling, and shared between neighbours on alternating days, each man taking turns to stand in the cold. Without such mutual aid, survival would be harder still. The samovar hums. Outside the city stirs. Muffled voices rising from the courtyard. A tram bell ringing faintly in the distance. Stalin is gone, but his shadow lingers in posters, in whispers, in the way people glance over their shoulders before speaking too openly. You sip your tea, its warmth fighting the draft that seeps through the window frame. The day ahead stretches in front of you. Factory floors, queues, ration shops, a life defined by both scarcity and resilience. But for now, in this small room with its cracked mirror and faint scent of cabbage, you simply breathe, gathering strength to step into another day on this side of the Iron Curtain. The hallway smells faintly of coal dust and cabbage as you step out once more, clutching your coat, towel and toiletry kit. The bathroom door is closed again, already claimed by another neighbour, and you know this rhythm too well. Morning means patience, morning means compromise. The corridor is narrow, lined with worn doors, each one a thin barrier between 8 families, and there are fragments of privacy. Your feet trace the parquet, once elegant when the building was home to a single wealthy family before the revolution. The boards now creak under the weight of decades. The light bulb overhead flickers, suspended by a frayed cord. You join the small line of figures waiting for their turn at the bathroom. Faces half sleeping, hair tousled, arms crossed against the draught. A muffled cough echoes through the hall, followed by the sound of running water. Someone knocks impatiently. You recognise the knock. It's the impatient rhythm of the young student who lives at the far end of the corridor. He has exams today and every minute counts. But the person inside doesn't hurry. Everyone knows how long an elderly widow can take when she washes her hair. How long a mother with 2 children needs to fill and drain the tub. You sigh and lean back against the peeling wallpaper, breathing in the mingled scents of soap and damp plaster. Historians still debate whether communal living was meant as a true socialist experiment in collective life, or simply the state's most efficient answer to desperate housing shortages after war. Either way, it is the reality you navigate each morning, a reality where cooperation and tension coexist in equal measure. The door creaks open at last. Steam curls outward, carrying the smell of cheap soap. The person emerging doesn't meet anyone's eyes, just hurries past, head down. You slip inside quickly, shutting the door against the cold draft. The bathroom is as you left it. Cracked tiles, streaks of rust around the taps, the toilet's chain clinking faintly in the silence. A thin towel hangs from a hook, damp and sour smelling. Not yours. You drape your own towel across the rail. The mirror above the sink is spotted and warped. Your face stares back pale in the dim light. You brush your teeth quickly, the enamel cup clinking against the sink. Water runs unevenly, spitting, coughing, before settling into a weak stream. Hot water is still holding. You splash your face again, relishing the fleeting warmth. Then you step into the tub, pulling the shower attachment over your head. The spray is thin, almost hesitant. You turn slowly, careful not to use too much time. The heat fades, cooling fast, and goosebumps rise on your arms. 7 minutes, 8 at most. You shut off the water and wrap yourself in your towel. Outside the door you hear footsteps shifting, muffled voices murmuring, the faint scrape of shoes on wood. You know the line is waiting, just as impatient as you were. You open the door, steam curling into the hall. A man gestures for you to pass, his nod brief but not unfriendly. Kindness here often comes in these small gestures, letting someone cut ahead, sharing a leftover piece of soap, guarding another's turn when the line grows restless. Back in your family's room, your mother has already cleared the table. A teacup waits for you, the liquid dark, almost bitter, but warming. Beside it sits a slice of black bread, dense and heavy, still faintly warm from the bakery. Your father has returned, his coat hung to dry, his face ruddy from the cold. He sets the loaf on the table carefully, dividing it into precise slices. You eat quietly, the bread chewy in your mouth. Bread is always there, always present, a symbol of stability in a system where so many things are uncertain. You chew slowly, the crust rough against your teeth, and feel the warmth of the tea trickle through your chest. Beyond your door the hallway grows louder. Children chatter, women argue, a pan clangs in the kitchen as another meal begins. The life of the communalka hums on, a chorus of 8 families moving around each other, sharing walls, sharing noise, sharing time. As you finish, your mother glances toward the door. "Go now," she says gently. "The line for the tram will already be long." You pull your heavy wool coat from the hook, the fabric rough, the shoulders sagging with age. It smells faintly of tobacco and damp wool. You tie the scarf tightly, slipping your hands into gloves worn thin at the fingertips. In the stairwell the air is colder still. The smell of cabbage lingers, mixed with the faint tang of tobacco. The elevator has been broken for years, so you descend the stairs on foot. 5 flights down, the sound of your steps echoing against stone walls. At the ground floor the door creaks as you push it open. Cold air strikes your face immediately, sharp enough to sting your eyes. Outside the street is grey with drizzle, puddles forming between cobblestones. The sky hangs low, heavy, colourless. People hurry past, collars raised, boots splashing through shallow water. Somewhere nearby a tram bell rings, cutting through the muffled noise of the waking city. You tighten your coat and step into the crowd, one more body among thousands. The day has begun. The kitchen is the beating heart of the communal apartment, and as you step into its doorway, the air is already thick with steam, chatter, and the sharp hiss of boiling water. The room is long and narrow, a relic of pre-revolutionary grandeur, now crowded with shelves, pots and stoves belonging to different families. A single gas range has been fitted with extra burners over the years, some functional, some temperamental, so that 4 or 5 people can cook at once if everyone keeps to their space. You clutch your enamel mug and look for a place to set it down. Every surface is claimed. Along the right wall a wooden cabinet is marked with chalk initials, each letter corresponding to a family. Your family's corner is small, a narrow shelf lined with jars of buckwheat tea leaves and the precious spoonfuls of sugar wrapped tightly in paper. You open the jar carefully, measuring with precision. Sugar is more valuable than many goods here. It sparks arguments, fuels favours, and sometimes resolves disputes when a cube is shared at the right moment. To your left, an old man tends to a pot of cabbage soup, the sour smell filling the air. His spoon scrapes the metal with a slow rhythm. A woman at the far end hovers over a frying pan, her voice rising in sharp complaint. Someone has left grease on the burner, and she won't clean up another person's mess. Another woman fires back with equal sharpness, her words snapping like the oil spattering in her pan. Arguments here are daily theatre, always shifting, sometimes bitter, sometimes ending in laughter when tempers cool. You place your mug near the samovar at the centre table. Its brass sides are dented and tarnished, but it still hisses faithfully, providing boiling water to anyone who needs it. The smell of strong tea mingles with the cabbage, the fried onions, the faint tang of kerosene from someone's portable stove. You pour carefully, filling your mug, the steam warming your hands. Historians still debate whether kitchens in communal apartments became true centres of Soviet social life out of necessity, or as a kind of resistance, places where people could share more than food, where whispered truths and private jokes could exist alongside official slogans. Whatever the reason, this is where lives intertwine, where arguments flare, where kindness surfaces, where trust is quietly built. You sip the tea, hot and slightly bitter, as voices ripple around you. One woman shares news of oranges arriving at the state shop 3 blocks away. A man replies skeptically, saying he waited in line yesterday only to find shelves empty. A younger student mentions a rumour that someone in the next building has smuggled in real coffee, foreign and aromatic, traded for a radio part. Heads turn, eyes narrow, questions hang unsaid. Coffee is too rare, too precious to joke about. The stove sputters. Flames rise unevenly beneath a pot and you lean closer, adjusting it with care. Your hands smell of a yarn and smoke. The soup inside bubbles slowly, the scent sharp and earthy. Behind you, a chair scrapes across the floor. Someone sits, their shoulders sagging from the weight of the morning already spent in queues. Another person laughs softly at a whispered joke, and the sound carries down the corridor, oddly fragile in the heavy air. Your family's bread rests on a cutting board, its crust thick and dark. You slice carefully, each piece measured to stretch until tomorrow. You spread it with a smear of butter, thin, barely covering the surface, and eat quickly, the taste simple but grounding. Around you plates clatter, voices rise and fall, spoons scrape bowls in a steady percussion. In the corner, a young boy pokes at a burner with a stick, watching the flame flicker. His mother scolds him sharply, pulling him back. She smooths his hair, muttering about danger, about rules, about how accidents bring trouble to everyone. The boy sulks, then returns to his seat, gnawing at a slice of bread. The kitchen feels crowded even when it isn't. The walls are stained with decades of smoke and grease, wallpaper curling in the corners. A single bare bulb glows overhead, its light harsh, casting shadows that tremble with every movement. You set your mug down, fingers sticky from the bread, and listen to the hum around you. Someone mentions the new posters plastered on Nevsky Prospect, bright with smiling workers exceeding their quotas. The voices here are quieter at that. A shrug, a small smirk, then silence. It isn't safe to say too much, not in a room where thin walls carry sound and ears may not always be friendly. Instead, the conversation shifts back to cabbage, to sugar, to rumours of fruit. You wash your cup quickly at the sink, the water running cold, tinged faintly with rust. The enamel chips scrape against porcelain. You dry it with the corner of your towel and tuck it back into your bag. Your mother glances up as you pass, her eyes reminding you not to linger. There is work waiting. There is school for the younger children. There are queues already forming for meat that may or may not arrive. You nod, pulling your coat tighter. The kitchen hum fades as you step back into the corridor, where the bulb still swings gently and voices echo from behind closed doors. The day presses forward. The kitchen door closes behind you, but its smells, its heat and its voices cling to you as you move toward the stairwell. The air outside is sharp, carrying the smell of damp stone and coal smoke. You pull your scarf higher, tucking your chin against the wall, and step onto the sidewalk already crowded with people heading in the same direction. The drizzle hasn't stopped since dawn, turning the street into a slick ribbon of grey. Your boots splash through shallow puddles, the leather stiff from yesterday's rain. At the corner, a line has already formed outside the bakery. Men and women huddle together, collars raised, shoulders hunched, their breath mingling in pale clouds. The line stretches along the wall, past a faded poster showing a smiling worker hoisting a loaf of bread, the caption promising abundance. The irony is not lost on anyone waiting here. Your father waves from near the front. He has been standing for hours, a wool cap pulled low over his ears. His cheeks are flushed from the cold. In his hands he clutches a ration card, the small rectangle of paper that grants access to the day's loaves. Without it, no bread can be bought. You step into line beside him, your body pressed against strangers, each person guarding their place with silent determination. The smell from inside drifts through the open door, a smell that is both comforting and cruel. Fresh bread is one of the few constants, a food the state takes care to supply because it sustains, because it calms, and because it is too symbolic to fail. Loaves are cheap, heavily subsidized, and yet they require patience, hours stolen from each week, hours that accumulate into months across a lifetime. The door creaks open wider. A woman emerges clutching 2 loaves wrapped in thin paper. She walks quickly, eyes down, ignoring the hungry glances that follow her. Her heels click against wet stone as she vanishes around the corner. The line shuffles forward. You rub your gloved hands together, the leather cracking where the seams have weakened. The cold bites through the fabric. Behind you, 2 men murmur softly. One says he heard that the meat shop will have sausages later today. The other shakes his head. Rumours always swirl, but reality rarely matches. Sometimes you stand for hours only to find shelves empty, goods already gone. Sometimes the clerk shrugs, says delivery never came, and you return home with nothing but the ache of wasted time. Historians still debate whether these lines created solidarity or resentment. Some argue that shared waiting became a form of social glue, where neighbours traded news, forged quiet friendships, and exchanged favours. Others claim the frustration eroded trust, fostering suspicion, envy, and silence. In truth, both coexist here. You feel it in the way strangers nod politely, then glance at your hands to count how many loaves you'll take. The line inches forward. Your father grips the ration card tighter. At the door, a clerk with tired eyes inspects each card, marking it carefully, before handing over the bread. When your turn comes, you step inside, the warmth of the bakery enveloping you, the air thick with yeast and steam. Loaves sit stacked behind the counter, brown crusts gleaming faintly. The sight is almost overwhelming in its abundance, though you know it is only temporary, that these stacks will vanish within the hour. The clerk stamps your father's card and slides 2 loaves across the counter. They are heavy, still warm, their crusts rough against your fingers. You cradle them carefully, as though they might break. For a moment, the simple weight of bread feels like security, like proof that tomorrow can be faced. Outside again, your father tucks 1 loaf beneath his arm and hands the other to you. The steam seeps through the paper wrapping, warming your hands. Around you, others clutch their loaves with the same reverence, the same relief. The line behind you still stretches down the block, but you are done, at least for today. You walk home together, careful not to slip on the wet stones. Your father nods to a neighbour passing by, another man carrying bread beneath his coat. They exchange no words, only a glance that acknowledges the quiet partnership. Today you had the card, tomorrow he will. These small networks of trust and reciprocity weave invisibly through every apartment, every street, keeping people afloat where the system alone cannot. Back at the stairwell, the building looms tall and dark. The hallway smells as it always does. Cabbage, tobacco, damp wood. You climb the 5 flights slowly, loaves pressed close to your chest. At your door, your mother opens quickly, her eyes lighting with relief at the sight of the bread. She takes one loaf and places it on the table, slicing it into careful portions. The knife scrapes the wood as she measures each piece precisely. Nothing is wasted here. You sit with your family, chewing slowly, the crust tough but satisfying. The bread fills your stomach, if not your heart. The warmth spreads, and for a moment the room feels less cold, the walls less thin, the world outside less heavy. The day is only beginning, but already the small rituals of survival have shaped it. Cues, stamps, favours, slices divided evenly on a table worn smooth by decades. This is how life continues, one loaf at a time. The factory looms ahead, a grey sprawl of brick buildings and chimneys belching smoke into the low sky. The gates are wide, flanked by iron bars blackened from years of soot. A guard stands at the entrance, his breath clouding in the cold, his eyes heavy with boredom. You show your papers, he hardly looks at them anymore, and join the stream of workers funneling into the yard. The sound grows as you move closer. Metal pounding, gears grinding, voices shouting to be heard over the din. Inside, the air thickens with the smell of oil and hot iron. Heat rises from the machines, dampening the wool of your coat, clinging to your skin. You head for the changing room, where benches line the walls and lockers stand dented from years of use. Men and women alike change quickly, boots thudding against the concrete floor, shirts sticking to their backs. Conversation is short, practical. Who heard about new boots arriving at the department store? Who knows which section might exceed quotas this month? You pull on your heavy work clothes, sturdy pants, a thick cotton shirt, a leather apron, each piece rough, each piece worn. On the factory floor the noise is relentless. Lathes shriek as metal bites metal, sparks fly from welders' torches. The air is alive with motion. You step to your station, the lathe you have operated so many mornings before. Its surface is scarred, oil pooled in its cracks. You grip the controls, hands moving almost automatically, muscle memory guiding you. The steel rod spins, shavings curling away in bright ribbons, piling at your feet. The rhythm is steady, hypnotic. Your mind drifts even as your body works. Nearby, the foreman's voice cuts through the air, sharp, demanding. He paces between rows of machines, clipboard clutched in one hand. His eyes scan quickly, catching any hesitation. Quotas must be met, always. Numbers matter more than quality here. At the end of the month, when reports are filed upward, production tallies gleam, though everyone knows corners were cut, that broken parts are passed along as complete. Historians still debate whether Soviet factories were monuments of efficiency or fragile systems held together by improvisation. You see the truth in front of you. Workers slowing when no one watches, saving their energy. Supervisors quietly overlooking flaws because targets matter more than reality. Jokes whispered during breaks. Mocking slogans painted on the walls. The posters show bright-eyed workers exceeding goals, but the faces around you tell another story. Tired, resigned, yet bound by necessity. The clang of steel against steel rattles your bones. You adjust the blade, sweat dampening your back despite the cold outside. The lathe hums, steady, dependable. Around you, the factory floor is a city within itself. Men hammering, women assembling, voices raised above the roar, each person a cog in the greater machine. During a pause, you wipe your brow with the back of your hand. Oil smears your skin, the smell sharp and metallic. Across the aisle, a worker lights a cigarette, smoke curling upward before the foreman's glare forces him to snuff it quickly. Another worker mutters about a shipment of material running late again. Without it, the line will stall. Everyone knows it, but no one says it too loudly. The horn sounds, shrill and commanding. 10 minutes for a break. You stretch your arms, joints stiff from repetition, and step outside into the yard. The drizzle still falls, coating the concrete in a slick film. You inhale the damp air, grateful to escape the thick heat inside. A cluster of workers stand in the corner, sharing cigarettes, their laughter rising for a moment before fading back into silence. You sip from a tin cup of weak tea, the liquid lukewarm but welcome. The cup rattles faintly in your hand as you watch the smoke from chimneys twist upward into the sky. Beyond the factory walls, the city continues, trams rattling past, queues forming at shops, children hurrying to school. But inside these gates, time bends differently. Hours stretch across the machines, each shift a long rhythm of noise and labour. The horn blares again, break over. You crush the last warmth of tea between your teeth and return to your station. The lathe spins, the blade bites, shavings fall. The work resumes and the factory hums on, vast and unyielding, carrying you deeper into the day. The factory horn still hums in your ears as you step outside at the end of the shift. The drizzle has thickened, soaking through your coat, but you barely notice. The street outside the gates is already crowded with workers, each moving towards the tram stop in the weary silence. Boots splash in shallow puddles, the sound rising and falling with the shuffle of hundreds of feet. You push through the throng until you reach the tram platform, where the line curves along the sidewalk. The air smells of wet wool and coal smoke. People huddle close, collars turned up, scarves pulled tight. A woman shifts a string bag from one arm to the other, its weight heavy with potatoes, the net damp and sagging. Beside her, a young man clutches a briefcase that leaks faintly at the seams, papers inside already curling with moisture. The tram arrives with a squeal, metal wheels grinding against slick rails. It is already full, condensation fogging its windows. Doors open with a reluctant hiss, and the crowd surges forward. You press with them, chest against shoulders, elbows braced, the press of bodies so tight you can hardly breathe. Somehow you squeeze inside, the doors clattering shut behind you. The air is thick, warm, almost suffocating. Windows are streaked with water, blurred shapes of the city sliding past. The tram rattles forward, each jolt pushing you closer against strangers. A man coughs into his scarf. A woman mutters, apologising as her elbow digs into your ribs. A child tucked against his mother's side stares at you with wide, solemn eyes. Outside, Leningrad unrolls like a damp canvas. Grand Baroque buildings with ornate facades sag under the weight of years, their plaster crumbling, paint peeling. Once they housed aristocrats, then became communal apartments like your own. Between them spawned stark blocks of newer construction, hastily built after the war. Uniform, boxy, there were walls thin against the cold. Propaganda posters cling to walls, their colours bright against the grey. They show smiling farmers, muscular workers, beaming children, all promises that jar against the hunched figures inside the tram. You wipe a circle onto the fogged glass with your sleeve. Outside, women in headscarves cluster around a shop entrance, waiting to see what might appear on the shelves. Men with briefcases hurry down sidewalks slick with rain, their shoes leaving dark prints that fade quickly. A street sweeper in an orange vest leans on his broom, watching the tram rattle past. Historians still debate how much faith people placed in the slogans plastered on these walls. Some argue that many believed that they drew strength from promises of progress and unity. Others say the faith had already thinned by the 1950s, replaced by weary pragmatism, people repeating the words they were told to repeat, but knowing in their bones the gap between image and reality. Perhaps both are true, coexisting like the fog and the rain, blurring the line between hope and resignation. The tram screeches to a halt, lurching everyone forward. Hands grab at poles, bodies press closer still. You mutter apologies as you push toward the door, stepping onto the platform with dozens of others. The air outside feels raw, damp, but free. You stamp your boots against the stones, flexing your fingers to restore circulation. The street stretches ahead, lined with puddles glinting under weak lamplight. People scatter in all directions, some towards shops, others towards stairwells identical to your own. You follow the current of bodies down the avenue, passing walls plastered with layers of posters. One announces the triumph of the latest 5-year plan. Another depicts happy families in bright red scarves, their hands raised in salute to a future that feels far away. At the next corner, another tram rumbles past, its windows fogged, its wheels shrieking against the rails. A man standing near you spits into the gutter, muttering under his breath. The words are swallowed by the rain. You pull your coat tighter, scarf rough against your chin, and walk on. The city hums around you, heavy with damp, filled with echoes of work, queues, and the endless rhythm of life under the grey sky. The street narrows as you turn into a district of new construction. The air smells faintly of wet plaster and cement dust, even in the drizzle. Ahead of you stand rows of identical 5-story apartment blocks, their walls pale and bare, their windows square and uniform. They look less like homes than like filing cabinets for human lives, each box assigned, each door identical. Yet to many, these buildings are a miracle. You climb the short stairwell of your own block, the steps still sharp at the corners, not yet worn by decades of boots. The stairwell smells of fresh paint, though dampness already creeps into the corners. A single light bulb glows overhead, buzzing faintly. The door to your apartment resists for a moment before opening, the lock stiff from newness. Inside, silence greets you. No clatter of pans from neighbours, no crying babies seeping through thin doors. This is not a communal apartment. This is yours, your family's alone. 1 bedroom, 1 tiny kitchen, 1 bathroom with a door that locks, and no one else's turn to wait for. The rooms are small, the walls thin enough that voices from the next apartment carry easily, but the space belongs to you. Your mother sets a kettle on the stove, humming softly. The kitchen is narrow, its linoleum floor curling already at the edges, its cupboard standard issue, pale wood, simple, uniform. The table fits against the wall, barely large enough for 3 chairs. But there is a window with the view of a small courtyard where other children play, their laughter echoing between the blocks. You take off your coat, heavy with rain, and hang it on a new hook beside the door. The furniture is sparse, functional, provided through state stores. A sofa that unfolds into a pair, a wall unit with the shelves for books and dishes, a wardrobe of simple plywood. Each piece is nearly identical to those in every other apartment in the building. Yet your family has already made it yours. Embroidered cloths over the shelves. A plant struggling toward the weak light of the window. A framed photograph of grandparents long gone. You step into the bathroom and close the door. Silence. No knocking, no waiting line, no neighbour impatient outside. The sink is small, the tiles plain, but the hot water runs, at least today. You turn the tap and watch steam curl upward, smiling at the simple miracle of privacy. Historians still debate whether Khrushchev's new apartments represented progress or decline. To some, they were salvation, a chance to leave the claustrophobic communal life and breathe in private space for the first time. To others, they were symbols of cheap construction, thin walls, uniform lives. For you, standing here, the argument feels abstract. The walls may be thin, but they are yours. The door may creak, but it locks. That is enough. At dinner, the table is crowded with modest dishes, cabbage soup, slices of black bread, a bowl of buckwheat. The food is simple, the portions careful, but the air feels lighter than in the communal kitchen. Your father speaks quietly, recounting the day at work without lowering his voice for eavesdroppers. Your mother smiles as she pours tea. No need to guard the sugar from other hands. The three of you sit together in a silence that is comfortable, not crowded. Later you step onto the small balcony. The concrete floor is damp, the railing cold under your palms. You look out over the courtyard where laundry flutters on lines, where children chase each other through puddles, their scarves trailing behind. Other balconies stretch in neat rows, each one echoing the same life in miniature. Families lean out, calling to neighbours, hanging sheets, shaking rugs. The sameness is striking, yet behind each door, different stories unfold. Night settles, the drizzle softening into mist. You step back inside, close the balcony door and draw the curtains. The apartment feels fragile, temporary, as though it could vanish if you breathe too hard. But it is yours. For the first time you will sleep in a room that belongs only to your family. The walls may be thin, but they keep out the sound of strangers. The kitchen may be small, but it holds only your pots and your bread. The bathroom may be plain, but it waits for no one but you. In this oddest space you feel a shift. Life has changed, however slightly, and the future holds a shape different from the past. The morning begins with a low rumble beneath your feet. You step into the tiled hall of the metro, where polished stone gleams under chandeliers strung high above. Marble columns rise on either side. Mosaics shimmer across vaulted ceilings, and bronze statues line the walls. Soldiers, farmers, children cast in eternal pride. The Moscow metro is no ordinary transit system. It is a palace underground, built to remind you with every step that the Soviet Union honours its workers, that beauty belongs to the people. You descend the escalator, its handrails smooth beneath your palm, the smell of iron and ozone rising from below. The station buzzes with quiet activity, not chaotic, but ordered. Commuters in coats and caps stand in neat clusters along the platform. Few speak. The silence is heavy, broken only by the shuffle of boots and the occasional cough. A newspaper rustles in one corner, Pravda's black print spreading news of new targets for industry and friendship between socialist nations. The train arrives precisely on schedule, its doors opening with a pneumatic hiss. You step inside, the car already full. The floor is damp with tracked-in snowmelt. Coats drip steadily, the windows blur with condensation. Straps hang from the ceiling, swaying gently as the passengers grip them, their faces blank with fatigue. Some clutch books, Tolstoy and state-issued editions, mathematics manuals, or slim volumes of Lenin's speeches. Others stare into the middle distance, conserving energy for the long day ahead. You find a place near the door, shoulder to shoulder with strangers. The car jolts forward, lights flickering briefly overhead. The train dives deeper, rattling through the tunnel, its wheels screaming at every turn. The crowd sways in unison, a single body moving to the rhythm of machinery. Outside the windows, the tunnel walls blur, then open briefly into another station. Each one is a gallery in itself, chandeliers shaped like sunbursts, frescoes of smiling farmers, stained glass glowing faintly even in the underground dark. Above the arches, slogans proclaim victory of socialism, progress of the 5-year plan, the unity of peoples. You glance around the car. No one looks up. These slogans are part of the scenery now, like cracks in the tiles or the flicker of the lights. Historians still debate the purpose of such grandeur. Was it truly a gift to workers, a promise that beauty belonged to them, or was it theatre, a daily performance of power meant to dazzle and distract? Perhaps it was both. For you, pressed against strangers in the humid air, the mosaics are distant, half forgotten. What matters is the train's reliability. It will carry you to the factory, to the office, to the school. Always on time, always present, even when other promises fail. At the next stop, a man squeezes in, clutching a string bag. Inside are apples, rare and bright, their scent piercing the smell of damp wool. The crowd shifts, eyes flicking toward the fruit. He turns his back, guarding the bag, his jaw tight. Another woman holds a bouquet of carnations wrapped in thin paper, perhaps for a celebration, perhaps for a grave. The petals brush against your sleeve, leaving faint traces of water. The train lurches again. Someone stumbles, pressing into you. You mutter an apology, though it was not your fault, and they nod, eyes already distant. This intimacy is unacknowledged. Bodies pressed so close that you feel the warmth of strangers' breath, yet no one speaks of it. Privacy does not exist here, not in the metro, not in the apartment, not even in thought. But silence offers its own form of survival. The announcer's voice crackles overhead, naming the next station in the crisp tones. You shift your weight, ready to push through the mass of coats and scarves. The crowd moves as one, pressing toward the doors. When they open, you spill onto the platform, boots striking the marble floor. Above you, chandeliers glow as though mocking the weariness etched into every face. You climb the escalator back toward the surface. The air grows colder, harsher, as you rise from the underground palace into the grey morning of Moscow. Behind you, the train departs with a roar, carrying others deeper into the veins of the city. Ahead, the streets stretch wide, lined with identical apartment blocks, their windows glowing faintly through the mist. You step out, the metro at your back, the day ahead waiting, another shift, another queue, another small survival carried within the rhythm of the Soviet city. The morning is brisk, the air sharp enough to sting your cheeks as you step into the schoolyard. Around you, children in identical brown uniforms gather in neat lines, their collars stiff, their shoes polished though already scuffed from use. A sea of red scarves flutters in the wind. The pioneer scarves tied tightly around every neck, the bright crimson cloth a symbol of belonging. You smooth your own scarf, the knot practiced until your hands can tie it in seconds. The fabric is coarse, dyed unevenly, but it marks you as part of something larger than yourself. You stand among your classmates, shoulders squared, voices hushed until the signal comes. At the front of the assembly, a young woman raises the flag. The pioneer oath begins, recited in unison. Promises to love the motherland, to live and study as Lenin commanded, to always serve the collective. The words roll off your tongue without hesitation. You have spoken them so many times they feel as natural as breath. Inside the school, the corridors echo with the clatter of boots and the murmur of lessons ahead. The walls are painted in pale green, lined with portraits of Lenin, Marx, and other figures whose gazes seem to follow you. A glass cabinet displays medals won by older students in mathematics competitions, model airplane contests, or athletics. You walk quickly, books clutched tight, and slip into the classroom. The room smells of chalk and ink. Desks are arranged in neat rows, the blackboard already covered with equations. The teacher stands at the front, her hair pulled back into a severe bun. She begins the lesson without pause, her chalk tapping brisk rhythms against the board. Mathematics is serious business here. Algebra, geometry, trigonometry drilled into young minds with relentless precision. You copy the formulas carefully, your pen scratching against the thin paper of your notebook. Later comes literature. You open a worn volume of Pushkin, the pages yellowed, the margins lined with notes. The teacher reads aloud, her voice rising and falling with practice cadence. Yet her explanations always circle back to ideology. Pushkin as a critic of aristocracy, Tolstoy as a forerunner of socialist thought. You write the words, not daring to disagree, though in your heart the stories speak of other things. Loneliness, love, longing. The lunch bell rings. The cafeteria is noisy, filled with the clatter of trays and the scent of soup. You stand in line with your classmates, receiving a ladleful of cabbage broth, a slice of black bread, a small cutlet. The portions are modest, but every child eats the same. No one singled out, no one left behind. You sit at a long table, benches pressed close, the noise rising around you like a tide. In the afternoon you attend a pioneer meeting. The troop leader, barely older than you, reads announcements from a pamphlet. Plans are made for a community clean-up, for rehearsals of patriotic songs, for a visit to a war memorial. You raise your hand when called upon, your voice blending with others as you recite slogans, as you pledge to embody the ideals you wear around your neck. The meeting ends with a song, bright, cheerful, sung loudly in unison. The sound fills the hall, bouncing against the walls, a chorus of children's voices trained to harmonize not only in pitch, but in thought. Historians still debate how much of pioneer life was genuine devotion and how much was quiet conformity. Was it childhood enthusiasm, innocent and real, or the first step into the machinery of ideology? Perhaps both. Standing in line, scarf tight against your throat, you feel pride and belonging, even as a faint unease stirs beneath. As the years pass, the scarf is exchanged for a new badge, the red pin of the Komsomol. Now a teenager, you attend meetings in the school's main hall. The banners are larger, the speeches longer, the expectations higher. You sit among rows of peers listening to promises of building socialism, of serving the collective. Notes are taken, discussions held, though always within the boundaries set by the party. Your name is called, your participation recorded. Advancement depends on these rituals. Yet in the quiet moments after the meeting, when you and your friends walk home through the autumn dusk, voices drop to a whisper. Someone mentions hearing Beatles songs on a scratched record copied onto old X-ray film. Someone else jokes about the slogans pinned to the walls. Laughter bubbles briefly, then fades as footsteps echo across the pavement. The scarf may be gone, the badge pinned proudly to your chest, but you're already learning the balance between what is said aloud and what is spoken only among friends. At home, you place your books on the table. The uniform hangs neatly on a chair, the red scarf folded, though you no longer wear it. Tomorrow will bring more lessons, more oaths, more songs. Tonight, though, you trace words in the margins of your notebook, lines of Pushkin hidden beside equations, your own quiet thoughts pressed between the lines of state-approved text. The winter wind cuts deep as you leave school one afternoon, scarf wrapped tight, boots crunching over frozen slush. In your satchel rattles a small treasure, 2 oranges, their skins bright as embers against the greyness around you. Your mother managed to buy them after hearing whispers in the queue that a shipment had arrived at the state shop. She waited 2 hours in the biting cold, shuffling forward step by step, hoping the fruit wouldn't vanish before her turn came. Tonight, she handed them to you as though they were gold. At home, the air is heavy with the smell of boiled potatoes and black bread. The table is bare except for your family's rationed staples: cabbage, flour, a jar of pickled cucumbers. You place the oranges carefully in the centre, and everyone gathers around. Your father slices one into quarters, the juice bursting, scent filling the room like sunshine in winter. Each piece is passed slowly, savoured as though it must last forever. The sweetness stings your tongue, sharp and fragrant. You close your eyes, breathing in the exotic perfume, imagining warm groves far to the south. Scarcity defines your meals. Sugar is measured in spoonfuls, butter spread thin enough to see the bread beneath. Meat arrives rarely, sometimes just bones simmered into broth. Your mother stretches every scrap, turning leftovers into stews, saving crumbs for dumplings. Nothing is wasted, not a heel of bread, not a wilted cabbage leaf. In this, she is an artist of survival. In the evenings, small luxuries surface. A neighbour knocks, offering a handful of sunflower seeds traded for a tin of condensed milk. Another family shares word of coffee beans acquired through a cousin who works in shipping. Coffee, real coffee, not the bitter instant substitute, is ground and brewed in secret, its aroma filling the corridor until someone complains. The smell lingers long after the pot is emptied, a reminder of pleasures too rare to be taken for granted. Historians still debate whether scarcity was an intentional means of control or the inevitable result of central planning. Did shortages keep people patient, grateful for small victories, or were they simply failures of a rigid system struggling to provide for millions? The truth may be both. What you know is simpler. Each orange, each piece of chocolate smuggled from abroad, each jar of honey bought from a farmer's market feels like proof that joy can be found even in scarcity. On New Year's Eve, your family saves the second orange. The table is set with care. A salad of potatoes and beets, slices of black bread, a small dish of pickled herring. A sprig of fir branches stands in a glass jar decorated with paper garlands. Grandfather Frost is expected tonight, though his gifts are modest. A carved toy, a knitted scarf, sometimes only a sweets. When the clock strikes midnight, you peel the orange slowly, the skin releasing its perfume into the room. Each segment is passed hand to hand, savoured between laughter and clinking glasses of sweet Soviet champagne. Later, when you step onto the balcony, the city glows faintly under snow. Fireworks crackle in the distance, dull bursts of colour against the night. Below, neighbours gather in the courtyard, raising glasses, sharing bread, exchanging hugs. For one evening, scarcity seems to retreat, replaced by warmth, by laughter, by the sharp sting of orange on your tongue. Even during ordinary weeks, you search for treasures. A trip to the gastronome, state grocery store, might bring nothing more than empty shelves. Yet sometimes there are apples, sometimes tins of sprats, sometimes even Georgian wine. Word travels quickly. Queues form instantly, stretching around the block, each person clinging to hope that the goods will not vanish before their turn. Waiting is its own ritual, a blend of patience, gossip, and quiet despair. You join willingly because you must. At home, the cupboard shelves are modest, but each item feels precious. A tin of jam saved for months. A bar of chocolate wrapped in foil, hidden at the back until a birthday. Even bread, cheap and steady, is treated with reverence. Never wasted, always shared, its crust carrying the weight of survival. Tonight, you lick your fingers after finishing the last wedge of orange. The taste lingers, sweet and fleeting. You know it will be months before you taste it again. But for now, in this small kitchen, with its peeling wallpaper and steaming kettle, the fruit feels like a gift from another world, a promise that colour exists beyond the grey. Evening settles slowly, the grey light outside giving way to the orange glow of lamps in apartment windows. You return home with your bag heavy, not with goods from the store. There was little to buy today, but with the weight of routine. Inside, the kitchen hums with life. Pans hiss on suppen on stoves. Water boils in battered pots, the air thick with steam and the mingled scents of cabbage, onions, and frying oil. You take your place at the narrow table, the enamel surface chipped from years of use. Your mother pours hot water from the kettle into the family's samovar. The hiss is comforting, familiar, like a heartbeat marking the rhythm of each evening. Cups clink against saucers, spoons stir sugar with a careful restraint. A small dish of pickles sits at the centre, their sharp scent mingling with the sweetness of tea. Bread is sliced thinly, each piece rationed so that none is wasted. Neighbours drift in, one carries a jar of homemade jam, another brings sunflower seeds wrapped in newspaper. Someone else contributes a single bottle of sweet Soviet champagne, saved for a special night. The kitchen fills with chatter and laughter, voices rising and falling like the tide. A chair scrapes, a spoon clatters, the hum of conversation weaving through the clink of glass and the whistle of steam. Stories are exchanged. One neighbour complains about standing in line at the butcher for hours only to find no meat delivered. Another shares the rumour of oranges arriving next week. A third tells a tale of a cousin in Moscow who managed to buy jeans, real Western denim, carried across borders in secrecy. The room bursts with laughter at the absurdity, but also with longing. You sip your tea, the heat seeping into your palms, the flavour strong and slightly bitter. The steam fogs your glasses, blurring the faces around the table. Conversation shifts, as it always does, to books and films. Someone mentions the latest Soviet war drama shown at the cinema. Another recalls a banned poet whose verses circulate in whispered copies, typewritten pages passed hand to hand. The air grows quieter, voices dropping as though walls themselves might be listening. Historians still debate the role of these evening kitchen gatherings. Some argue they were the true heart of Soviet life, spaces where families built trust, where friendships deepened, where truth was spoken more freely than in public halls. Others say they were small islands of resistance, fragile sanctuaries where people admitted to one another what they dared not write. In this moment, sitting with friends and family, you feel both at once. The table grows crowded with dishes. A neighbour's wife unwraps a loaf of black bread still warm from the oven. Another places a plate of fried potatoes at the centre. Golden edges crisp, the smell rich and comforting. Plates pass from hand to hand. Everyone eats, everyone shares. Hunger is dulled not just by food, but by the warmth of company. Laughter bubbles up again when a story is told of someone who hid sugar cubes inside a hollowed-out loaf to keep them from being stolen in the communal pantry. Someone else adds a tale of a factory worker who traded 2 pairs of boots for a single bottle of Georgian wine. The absurdity brings tears of laughter, yet the humour hides a harder truth. Survival here depends as much on wit and cunning as on rations. The evening stretches, cups are refilled, the jam spoon scraped against the glass to capture the last sweetness. Cigarette smoke curls upward, blending with the steam of the samovar. Someone hums a folk tune under their breath. A child falls asleep at the corner of the table, head resting on folded arms, while voices continue around them. Eventually the gathering thins. Neighbours rise, offering thanks, pulling on coats. The chairs scrape, the door opens and shuts. Footsteps fade down the corridor. The kitchen grows quiet. The only sound the low hiss of the kettle cooling on the stove. You clear the table, wiping crumbs into your palm, careful not to waste a single one. The dishes clink softly as you wash them in cold water, the porcelain smooth and cool beneath your hands. The room feels smaller now, emptier, yet still warm with the echo of voices and laughter. As you dry your hands on a towel, you realise that these evenings are more than meals. They are anchors in a life filled with shortages, with queues, with waiting. Here, around a chipped enamel table, you feel the fragile comfort of belonging. The cinema smells of wet wool and tobacco smoke as you shuffle forward in line. Your boots slip slightly on the damp floor, your breath fogging the glass doors ahead. The marquee above announces tonight's showing, a Soviet war epic, filmed in sweeping black and white, its posters promising heroism, sacrifice and victory. Tickets are cheap, heavily subsidised so that anyone can attend, but that does not mean seats are guaranteed. You clutch your stub tightly, relieved that you arrived early enough to secure one. Inside, the theatre is dim and cavernous, its ceiling high, chandeliers dusty but still grand. The walls are lined with red drapery, threadbare in places, but heavy enough to muffle footsteps. The audience murmurs quietly, coats draped over their knees, programs folded into fans. A projector beam flickers through dust in the air as the reels begin. The first images are not the film, but the newsreel as always. Grainy footage of tractors rolling across fields, workers smiling with bright teeth, factory directors boasting of quotas exceeded. Applause ripples through the room, polite and thin, then fades. The lights dim further, and the main feature begins. On screen, soldiers march bravely into battle, rifles raised, their faces resolute. The soundtrack swells with trumpets. A young actress, familiar to everyone, plays a nurse who embodies courage and sacrifice. The story unfolds predictably. Struggle, perseverance, eventual triumph under the red flag. You sit quietly, letting the film wash over you. The faces on screen glow with purpose, their voices heavy with slogans. The audience sighs, nods, and some even wipe away tears. Yet behind the emotion lies something else, a silent understanding that life outside this theatre rarely matches the perfection projected here. Later, at home, the film lingers only faintly. What stays in your mind is not the screen, but the sound you heard after the showing. In the stairwell, a friend slipped you something small and precious, a thin record, its surface cloudy, brittle. You turn it over in your hands. The grooves shimmer faintly under lamplight, but the material is strange. X-ray film, black and ghostly, faint images of bones and ribs visible beneath the scratches. You know what it is before he even whispers, music on the bones. Western songs etched illegally onto discarded medical film. Smuggled melodies of the Beatles, forbidden yet irresistible, passed hand to hand in secret. That night you place the fragile disc on a record player. The needle drops and the sound is warped, crackling yet unmistakable. The guitar riff scratches through the static, a voice rising, foreign, strange, alive. You sit frozen, listening as though the walls themselves might lean closer. The lyrics are half lost, words blurred, but the rhythm is clear. Each chord pulses with something forbidden, possibility, freedom, a world beyond these walls. Historians still debate whether such cultural leaks weakened the Soviet system or simply gave people a harmless taste of another world. Some argue that these songs planted seeds of restlessness, reminding listeners that alternatives existed. Others insist they were only entertainment, no more dangerous than a whispered joke in the factory. Sitting in the half-dark, the needle tracing the ridges of an X-ray ribcage, you feel both. The music is joy and danger, escape and entrapment all at once. You play the record softly, volume low, the sound mingling with the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled voices of neighbours through the wall. You know that if the wrong person hears, questions might be asked, but you cannot stop. The crackle of the record fills the room, its imperfections only making it more real. The next day you meet a friend in a dim cafe. Cups of weak coffee clink on the table. He leans forward, voice low, speaking of other records, of books passed in secret, of films watched behind drawn curtains. His eyes shine with mischief, with hunger for more. You nod, careful to keep your face neutral, yet inside something stirs, a spark, a rhythm you cannot ignore. That evening you return to the cinema, not for the official film but for the murmurs in the lobby, the quiet exchanges in the dark. Culture here comes in layers, the sanctioned, the tolerated, the forbidden. You move between them carefully, learning the balance, learning to listen for what is spoken aloud and what is whispered only when doors are closed. The projector hums again, another patriotic film begins, but your mind drifts back to the crackle of guitar on brittle X-ray ribs. That sound will not fade. The train clatters southward, its windows rattling with each turn, the air inside thick with the mingled smells of wool coats, cigarettes and sunflower seeds. You sit pressed against the window, forehead resting on the cool glass, watching the grey fields pass in slow succession. Beside you, a suitcase holds modest clothes, a towel, and a bar of soap, the essentials for 2 weeks at a sanatorium on the Black Sea. The ticket, called a putiovka, was issued through your father's workplace, his reward for steady labour and good attendance. Without it, such a journey would be impossible. When the train finally arrives, the air smells different, lighter, salted by the sea. The sky, though pale, carries hints of warmth absent in the north. You step out into a courtyard lined with pine trees, the branches swaying gently in the breeze. The sanatorium buildings are plain, concrete boxes softened only by balconies lined with drying towels. Yet to you, they feel extraordinary. An escape from queues and factory smoke, a chance to breathe freely. Your room is spare. 2 single beds with thin mattresses, a nightstand, a wardrobe smelling faintly of disinfectant. The window opens onto the sea, the horizon stretching wide and endless. For a moment you stand still, staring at the waves, the sound of water against shore soothing after the grind of city life. Meals are served in a dining hall where hundreds of people gather at once. Long tables are set with plates of soup, cutlets and tea, all regulated and portioned. The food is filling if not memorable, but the atmosphere feels lighter. People chatter, laugh, exchange addresses, their voices carrying above the clatter of dishes. A doctor in a white coat moves between tables, reminding guests to follow their health regimens. Walks at dawn, mineral water at prescribed times, rest after meals. Leisure here is structured, as though even relaxation must serve the collective good. Days follow a rhythm. In the mornings you join group exercises on the beach, bodies moving in unison, arms stretching toward the rising sun. Later you hike in clusters along pine trails, guides reminding you of the health benefits of fresh air. Afternoons bring rest in deck chairs lined neatly along the promenade, each person reclining in identical poses beneath the weak southern sun. The waves lap softly, seagulls cry overhead, and the monotony becomes strangely calming. Historians still debate whether these state-run vacations were gifts of genuine care or tools of subtle control. Did they nurture health and unity, Or did they keep workers docile by offering just enough pleasure to dull discontent? You do not ponder this as you sip warm mineral water from a cup, its taste metallic and sharp. You only know that here, under the sun, your lungs feel clearer, your body lighter, your thoughts less heavy. Evenings are more lively. Music drifts from a hall where an accordion leads dancing. Couples spinning in modest steps. A man recites poetry to small applause. Another plays a guitar softly by the fire pit, flames crackling against the night. You join a circle of strangers turned friends, sharing stories of cities, of factories, of families left at home. Laughter rises easily, carried away on the sea breeze. One afternoon you visit the shore itself. The Black Sea spreads before you, deep and endless, its waves rolling against the pebbled beach. Children splash in the shallows, their shrieks carried on the wind. Adults wade cautiously, the water cool but inviting. You remove your shoes and step onto the stones, the surf foaming around your ankles. The salt clings to your skin, the rhythm of the waves thrums in your chest. For a moment you forget the queues, the shortages, the greyness. Here there is only the sea, timeless and immense. When the sun dips low, the sanatorium comes alive again with planned lectures, cultural evenings, film screenings. Tonight a documentary plays about Soviet achievements in space. Images of rockets soaring skyward, of Gagarin smiling beneath his helmet. Applause ripples through the hall, genuine pride mingling with the propaganda. You clap too, swept by the shared moment, by the reminder that despite hardships the nation has reached the stars. 2 weeks pass in a blur of salt, pine and routine. On the final day you pack your suitcase reluctantly. You fold your towel, tuck away the bar of soap, and glance one last time at the sea beyond the balcony. The horizon glimmers, endless, unclaimed. Then the train whistle calls you back. As you board, the familiar weight of your coat returns, the press of bodies in narrow corridors, the rattle of wheels carrying you northward. The holiday is over, but the memory of sunlight and salt water lingers, a fragile reservoir of warmth to carry back into grey city streets. The years pass, and with them comes a heaviness that settles over the city like fog. You feel it in the way people walk, shoulders bowed, faces unreadable, as though even expressions are rationed. The slogans on the walls remain bright. Smiling workers surpassing quotas, happy children marching beneath red banners. But the people who pass these posters no longer look up. Their eyes are tired, their steps steady but slow. At work, the routine grinds on. Machines grown with age, patched and coaxed to function long past their intended life. Reports are filed in triplicate, numbers inflated to please superiors, bonuses dangled but rarely delivered. Supervisors give speeches about productivity, about the brilliance of the latest 5-year plan, yet behind closed doors, workers mutter about shortages, about parts that never arrive, about wages that stretch thinner each month. Everyone knows, but no one says too much. At the weekly meeting, you sit in a row of chairs, your red Komsomol badge pinned neatly to your lapel. The leader reads announcements in a steady monotone. Volunteer projects, ideological education sessions, the upcoming May Day parade. You clap at the right moments, your hands striking with the same rhythm as those around you. The hall echoes with applause that feels automatic, a reflex honed over years. Later, in the kitchen of a friend's apartment, the voices change. Over cups of tea and plates of pickled cucumbers, people laugh more freely, their words cautious but honest. Someone jokes about the new factory slogan, plan fulfilled at a 20%, even as the shelves in the store remain bare. Another whispers that his cousin in Moscow has genes, real Western genes, bought through connections. The laughter is tinged with envy, with longing, but it is laughter nonetheless. Historians still debate whether this period, the Brezhnev years, was a time of stability or of decay. Some argue it brought peace and predictability, a life free from war and terror, with guaranteed jobs, pensions and housing. Others say it was stagnation, a slow decline hidden beneath layers of ceremony and slogans. You live it daily, and you feel both truths at once, safety and suffocation, comfort and emptiness. In public, you play the part expected of you. At parades, you march with your colleagues, banners raised, flags fluttering. The streets ring with music, drums beating as thousands move in step. Cameras capture the spectacle, and the evening news proclaims unity and strength. Yet you remember how, earlier that morning, you stood in line for hours at the grocery only to leave with nothing but a loaf of bread. In private, you find small escapes. A cassette tape smuggled from abroad, its sound faint but thrilling. A novel by a writer who treads dangerously close to forbidden truths, borrowed from a friend and read in secret at night. A whispered joke about the leadership shared only with those you trust completely. These moments are fragile, dangerous, but they breathe life into days otherwise dulled by routine. At home, your children prepare for school, their pioneer scarves bright against their uniforms. They recite the same oaths you once spoke, their voices clear and strong. You watch them with pride, yet also with unease. You know the double life that lies ahead. One truth spoken in classrooms and meetings, another whispered in kitchens and stairwells. You wonder if they will learn, as you did, to navigate the gap between slogans and reality. On weekends you walk through the park. Families stroll, children chase pigeons, couples sit on benches sharing bread. The air is filled with the smell of roasted sunflower seeds, the sound of laughter. For a moment, the world feels lighter, almost ordinary. But then you pass a store with a line curling around the block, people waiting for whatever might be delivered, sausages, butter, perhaps nothing at all. Their faces are patient, resigned, a portrait of endurance. At night you sit by the window, the city quiet except for the hum of trams and the occasional bark of a dog. Lights flicker in apartment blocks across the street, each window holding a life like yours, predictable, modest, caught between stability and stagnation. You sip weak tea, the steam curling upward, and wonder if anything will change, or if this rhythm will continue forever. The gap between public and private grows wider each year. In official halls, voices declare progress. In kitchens, voices murmur truth. Between them lies your life, stretched thin but enduring, marked by both safety and silence. Night lowers itself over the city the way a heavy blanket settles over tired shoulders. You click off the kitchen light and the apartment becomes a constellation of small sounds. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the wall clock, water whispering inside the radiator like someone telling secrets through the pipes. The smell of boiled potatoes still lingers, mixed with tea leaves and the ghost of vinegar from the pickles. On the table, crust crumbs cling to the enamel plate. You brush them into your palm, nothing wasted, and slip them to the saucer where tomorrow's soup will thicken. In the next room, homework pages rustle. A child's pencil scrapes the paper slowly, numbers marching in neat rows. The red pioneer scarf lies coiled on the chair back, a bright ribbon in the dimness, and beside it the tiny Komsomol pin glints like a watchful eye. You thread a loose button back onto a shirt, needle flashing, thread rough against your fingers, cloth smells like serpent old iron. When the last stitch tightens, you bite off the thread and smooth the fabric, the gesture small and complete. The television hums to life. The glass warms, the image steadies. A presenter's voice spreads across the room, practiced and calm, telling you about agricultural success and the friendship of peoples. The film grain flickers over the faces of workers who smile with clean hands. Your own hands smell of oil and cabbage, salt from tears you didn't shed. You listen because the voice asked you to listen. You learn nothing, and still you listen. When programming ends, the anthem swells. The screen fades to a test card, colours banded like a flag you can't fold. You click the set dark and the room exhales. You stand by the window. Across the courtyard, other rectangles glow. Someone peels potatoes under a single bulb. Someone lifts a baby who can't sleep. Someone shakes out a tablecloth, crumbs falling like snow. A man on a balcony smokes a final cigarette, ember pulsing, a brief star. Somewhere a radio plays waltz music under breath. Once, from a kitchen 2 floors down, those forbidden guitar chords on X-ray ribs throbbed through the building. You remember the scratch and ghostly hiss, how the room felt suddenly too small for the noise, how your heart struck against bone in answer. Historians still debate what breaks a system like this in the end. Some point to numbers that stop adding up. Factories that pretend to work, stores that pretend to sell, reports that pretend to tell the truth. Others say pressure from outside, an arms race tightening like a belt around a patient already short of air. Others talk about oil prices dropping, or the long, dragging weight of a war far from home that sends back coffins and silence. You don't speak in those terms tonight. You listen to pipes. You stack plates. You count how many matches remain in the box. There is the mainstream truth you cannot miss. The long leadership ends. Portraits change. The evening news names new men with careful solemnity and talks of discipline, of order. The year itself feels like it breathes differently. Slightly shorter in patience, slightly longer in whispers. Yet rent is still due on the same day, shoes still need mending, and the tram still screeches in the morning with breath like steam horses. The anthem still closes the broadcast at night. The store line still wraps the block and smells of wool and hope. The fridge still hums, steady as a vow. You tidy the shelf where jam jars stand like coloured lanterns. Rosehip apple, something darker you saved for a celebration that never quite arrives. You smooth the paper labels with thumb. In the drawer, a nest of reused plastic bags crackles softly. Each crease records a prior errand. Your string bag, the Avoska, the just-in-case, hangs by the door, ready to become a net should fish appear in a sea that rarely yields them. On the sill, a plant leans toward a moon you can't see. Its soil is dry. You turn the faucet and count the drops, then stop at 5 because 5 feels safe. You step onto the balcony. Night air pushes into your throat, metal cold and clean. Laundry lines run like boundaries between lives. Somewhere a couple argues, their words too soft to carry meaning, only shape. A dog scratches the door on the 3rd floor. Beyond the courtyard, trolley wires comb the sky into strict lines. A tram's bell rings, one bright note hanging, a bead of light that doesn't fall. You tuck your hands into your sleeves and stand until your bones start to shiver. Then you go in, close the latch, draw the curtain. By the sink, cups cool. The samovar breathes its last whisper, lid clinking from the gentle contraction of metal returning to itself. You open the bread box. The knife serrations shine like small mountains. You cut a slice, not thick, not thin. Wrap it, set it aside for morning. You tap the clock glass. The second hand resumes its slide. On your desk lies a letter from a cousin who writes of a university lab that needs parts the ministry didn't deliver. He asks for connections, for a favour, for another layer of the invisible web that holds everything up when the beams creak. You set the letter under the brass paperweight shaped like a globe whose seams do not line up. In bed, the sheet is cool, the blanket rough against your chin. The mattress gives where years have pressed it down, and your body fits the hollow perfectly. Through the wall comes the steady murmur of another family's bedtime ritual, a lullaby hummed, a tap run briefly for one last glass of water, a cough, a soft reprimand. You breathe with them, neither together nor alone, a chorus that does not perform. You try to name what this day was: bread, tram, work, cue, kettle, button, anthem, a life made of small beads on a thin cord that never breaks but never brightens. And yet a thought stirs like a moth against the lamp. The system outside feels solid until it doesn't. It tells you it will last forever until it speaks in a new voice, until it asks different questions, until lies sound hoarse from repetition, and truth slips through cracks like water in spring. You don't know what comes next. You only know how to lay out tomorrow's bread, to warm the kettle, to set the alarm, to smooth the blanket's edge so it won't scratch your cheek when you turn in the dark. You click off the lamp. The refrigerator keeps humming, a tiny engine patient as winter. The city folds itself into sleep in layers. First the stairwell, then the courtyard, then the avenues beyond. Your eyelids lower. The room leans into quiet. That other world, the one you walk all day, narrows to the width of your pillow and the warmth of your breath. You're safe now. The room softens, edges rounding, sounds dimming to a distant hush. Breath slows, shoulders loosen, jaw releases. The fridge hum fades into the kind of steady lull that keeps time the way a hand keeps time on your back. Patient, reassuring, unhurried. The cord of the day unthreads itself gently. The tram's metallic cry dissolves. The cue's shuffle drifts away. The anthem's brass glow melts into a low, friendly murmur that doesn't need you anymore. You let go of the cold stairwell and the wet wool and the counted matches. You set down the string bag and the ration card and the careful slice of bread for morning. The kitchen light switches off inside your chest. The samovar's last whisper is only warmth now. That world steps back from the window and lowers the curtain, and the night here, quiet, soft, uncomplicated, draws close. Every narrow hallway you walked unwinds into a wide meadow. Every rigid poster peels into simple colour. The pioneer scarf unties itself and becomes a ribbon of warm air. The record's crackle fades to the smallest distant rain, steady and kind. You don't need to hold the line in the doorway, or count seconds in the bathroom, or keep phrases folded beneath your tongue. The door is closed, the room is yours, and the silence belongs to you. In this gentler dark you float. Shoulders lighten, hands busy all day with knives and thread and tickets, open and empty. The bed remembers your shape and welcomes you back. You are warm enough. You have enough. The clock is only a circle now. The night has time. That world fades behind you just as the city fades through a train window at dusk. Slower than you expect, and then all at once. You're safe now. Breathe in, let it go adrift.